Same moment, different mindset. Why some people see opportunity and others only see the obstacle. There are two fundamentally different ways to see the world. Some people see what they want. Others see everything standing in the way of getting it. That single distinction quietly determines the direction of an entire life. You've seen it play out before, even if you didn't notice it at the time. Two people, same starting line, same resources, same amount of time. And yet, years later, their outcomes look nothing alike. One moved forward, the other stayed stuck. Not because of intelligence, not because of talent, but because of how they perceived the path in front of them. There's an old story about two lumberjacks that captures this perfectly. Every morning, they start chopping wood at the exact same time. Every evening, they stop at the exact same time. Same tools, same forest, same weather. But every single day, one of them produces significantly more wood than the other. And there's something strange. In the middle of the day, right when productivity should peak, one of the lumberjacks disappears for about an hour. He just vanishes. Then he comes back and keeps working until sunset. This goes on for months. Eventually, the lumberjack who works straight through the day can't take it anymore. He finally asks, "I don't understand. We start at the same time, we stop at the same time. You disappear every day for an hour, and you still cut more wood than I do. Where do you go?" The other lumberjack looks up and calmly says, "I go home. I sharpen my axe." That's the moment most people miss. The story isn't about working harder, it's about thinking longer. When you adopt a short-term mindset, every break feels like lost progress, every pause feels like weakness, rest feels irresponsible, preparation feels optional. But when you adopt an infinite mindset, when you think in terms of careers, decades, and lifetimes, everything changes. Productivity is no longer about how much you squeeze out of a single day. It's about how sustainable your effort is over time. Sharpening the axe isn't laziness, it's strategy. And yet, most people never sharpen their axe. They burn themselves out trying to look busy. They confuse exhaustion with commitment. They brag about how little sleep they get, how busy they are, how overwhelmed they feel, as if suffering were a credential. But performance doesn't come from depletion, it comes from renewal. That's why real leaders take vacations and actually disconnect. They turn off email, they stop checking messages, they step away long enough to restore clarity. Not because they don't care, but because they care enough to think long-term. You can't lead forever on fumes. Rule 1. Go after what you want, not the way everyone else does. Most people assume there's only one acceptable way to pursue what they want. Stand in line, follow the process, wait your turn. But that assumption is often self-imposed. Here's a small story that reveals something much bigger. A friend and I once went for a run in Central Park. At the end of the race, as often happens, there was a sponsor giving away free bagels. Volunteers stood behind tables stacked with boxes. In front of the tables, a long line of runners waited patiently. I said, "Let's get a bagel." My friend looked at the line and said, "Nah, the line's too long." I said, "But free bagel." He said, "I don't want to wait." All he could see was the line. All I could see were the bagels. So I walked up, leaned between two people, reached into the box, grabbed 2 bagels, and walked away. No one got mad, no one yelled, no one stopped me. Why? Because there was no rule saying you had to wait in line. The only rule was that you couldn't stop anyone else from getting what they wanted. That's the part most people forget. You are allowed to go after what you want, your way, as long as you don't block others from doing the same. You don't have to follow the path everyone else is following just because it's crowded. You don't have to adopt strategies that drain you simply because they're conventional. You're allowed to be creative. You're allowed to break patterns. You're allowed to question assumptions. What you're not allowed to do is use your ambition as an excuse to harm others. Freedom exists inside responsibility. Rule 2. Take care of each other. That's how you advance. If you want to understand elite performance, look beyond individual toughness. Look at how people treat each other when everything hurts. The U.S. Navy SEALs were among the most elite warriors on the planet. Naturally, people assume the strongest, fastest, most aggressive individuals make it through selection. They don't. A SEAL once explained it this way: "I can't tell you who makes it through training, but I can tell you who doesn't. The guys covered in tattoos, obsessed with proving how tough they are, they don't make it. The preening leaders who delegate everything and never carry their own weight, they don't make it. The star athletes who've never been tested at the core of their being, they don't make it." Some of the men who do make it through are skinny. Some are visibly scared. Some are shivering, exhausted, broken down physically and emotionally. But they all share one trait. When they have nothing left, no strength, no energy, no emotional reserve, they still find a way to help the person next to them. They carry someone else's pack. They encourage someone who's about to quit. They refuse to leave a teammate behind. That's what makes them elite. Advancement in the real world works the same way. It's not about how fast you run. It's about how well you help others move forward. The world is too complex, too dangerous, and too unpredictable for solo heroes. Sustainable success is built through interdependence. If you've found your spark, the next question isn't "how far can I go?" It's "who will I ask for help and when will I accept it?" Learning to ask for help is a skill. Learning to accept help is an even harder one. But here's the truth. The moment you stop pretending you have everything under control, you'll discover how many people have been waiting for permission to support you. Strength doesn't repel help. Ego does. Rule 3. Be the last to speak. Nelson Mandela is one of the few leaders admired almost universally across cultures and ideologies. When asked how he learned to lead, he didn't talk about charisma or authority. He talked about watching his father. As a tribal chief, Mandela's father would attend meetings with other elders. Two things stood out to young Nelson. They always sat in a circle, and his father was always the last to speak. That habit shaped Mandela's leadership philosophy. Most leaders are taught to listen. That's good advice, but incomplete. The real skill is learning to withhold your opinion. In boardrooms everywhere, leaders walk in and say, "Here's the problem. Here's what I think, but I want your input." At that point, it's already over. Once the leader speaks, everyone else calibrates their response, either aligning with it or carefully disagreeing. Honest input disappears. When you speak last, something powerful happens. People feel heard. They feel valued. They feel safe contributing honestly. And you gain access to information you would have never heard otherwise. The discipline is harder than it sounds. No nodding when you agree, no shaking your head when you don't, no defending, no correcting, just asking questions to understand why someone thinks the way they do. At the end, when you finally speak, your words carry more weight because they're informed, not reactive. Leadership isn't about being first, it's about being right at the right time. Rule 4. Sometimes you're the problem. In the 18th and 19th centuries, a mysterious phenomenon ravaged Europe. Women were dying shortly after childbirth at terrifying rates. In some hospitals, mortality reached 70%. Doctors studied the problem obsessively. They were men of science. They rejected superstition. They conducted autopsies in the morning and delivered babies in the afternoon. No one connected the dots until one doctor pointed out the obvious. The same doctors handling corpses weren't washing their hands before delivering babies. They called him crazy for decades. Eventually, they tried hand washing. The deaths stopped. The lesson is uncomfortable but essential. Sometimes the problem is not external, it's you. Leadership requires accountability.
You don't get to take credit for success without also taking responsibility for failure. Blame feels good in the short term. Ownership builds trust long term. Leadership is environment, not talent. I once stayed at a Four Seasons in Las Vegas. It wasn't the luxury that stood out, it was the people. Everyone, from the front desk to the coffee stand, seemed genuinely happy to be there. One afternoon, I bought a coffee from a barista named Noah. He was warm, engaged, and energetic. I asked him, "Do you like your job?" Without hesitation, he said, "I love my job." I asked why. He explained that managers regularly check in, not to catch mistakes, but to ask how they can help. Not just his manager, any manager. Then he added something revealing. "I also work at Caesar's Palace. Here, managers look for what we do wrong. I keep my head down and just try to get through the day." Same